Why don't we move on though to something that nobody missed? Game of Thrones, the finale, the series finale.
Highest rated HBO episode ever. I think it was 19 million initially when the first the first initial viewing and the immediate streaming. And then, I mean, the past episodes this season were ballooning up to, I think, in the 40 millions within the week. So, I mean, monoculture, as we've said ad nauseum, but it is true. But it's also
Yeah.
funny because a few days ago, Big Bang Theory signed off, and that also did like 18 million on CBS.
I did not watch that one. I totally missed
No,
that. And we're not going to be
twice as
talking
many
about that
homes, by
today.
the way. Broadcast channel, not the same.
Definitely not the same. So Game of Thrones is over. Why don't we talk about the episode first, and we'll give our thoughts about the show as a whole at the end. You know, we've talked ad nauseum about the issues with this season, and mostly it's the pacing. Um, I think the last two seasons, if they had been stretched out a bit more to three, maybe even doubled, and they were able to be four seasons, that would have definitely helped the show and the storytelling of the show, and it would have made things felt a lot more earned. It would have made decisions that the characters made feel more true to who they were and the circumstances that are driving these decisions. But overall, our take has been that the show is still good and it's still pretty satisfying. We're getting a lot of the things we want, even if it's not necessarily always in the way we want. And I think this episode kind of fits that. I left and I said that was a fine finale to everything. I felt like what they've done well all season, they did well here. The interpersonal, emotional moments were great. The John Tyrion conversation was great.
Mm-hmm.
John killing Danny was great. The Starks goodbye and them all going in their different directions, I thought was really good. Even the throne room conversation between Tyrion and Bronn and Davos and
I
Brienne
love
at the
that
end
one.
was fantastic. All
Small
of that
Castle.
stuff was really good. And Tyrion seeing Jaime and Cersei, all that stuff was great. Where I think the show fumbles a bit is probably the meet and greet in the Dragon Pit. I think there was some stumbling there.
Interesting.
I think there's some questions in terms of like, do all the decisions that they made for the show make sense in terms of like what's next? But I think overall it was a fine finale, and I'm satisfied with the way that they wrapped it up. How did you feel about the end of Game of Thrones, the last episode?
Yeah, I did find the finale quite satisfying, and as you were saying, I haven't really had an issue with basically any story beat that has happened. Uh, just the rush pacing can make the effectiveness wane.
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that everything was ineffective from a plot perspective because of this. That's certainly not true. But some things you think just would have landed better with more time, as you were saying. But you know, this I see some of the discourse around the finale leaving open questions, and I was like, I thought we accepted like weeks ago that they're not going to answer every question, and that's just not what's we're interested in. Like we're not going to find out if Ilaria Sand and Septa Unella are still in the fucking dungeons that Cersei had them in. Like
Yeah.
that's not coming back up, and nor is that a substantial gripe to have, in my opinion. Like I just don't know why people are focusing on these weird things, you know. And like, yes, at the Dragon Pit, was that guy Hallan Reed one of the unknown lords there? I think he was. Would have been cool to hear from Hallan Reed a long time ago. At this point, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And frankly, I really liked the Dragon Pit scene just because I was just like, who are these people? Is that a Manderly on the right? New Prince of Dorne they mentioned? Oscar Isaac looking motherfucker?
Yeah.
Fuck Quentin, by the way. If you read the books, he sucks. I really like that just because great opportunity to dunk on Edmure one last time.
Yeah.
Tobias Menzies coming back. That was fantastic. Also, Robin Aaron with the big glow up, like fucking Neville Longbottom out of Harry Potter, man. Just
solids are treating him well, son.
I clicked on his Twitter and I did something else and I refreshed it and it like jumped up the followers. Like you go into his Instagram comments right now. I think he's an Italian actor. People are shook. Let's put it that way. And it's just really funny. There's a lot of Robin pieces this morning. So that was cool. But I think the small council scene, as you mentioned, man, I just had a smile on my face that whole time. That was just so cool to
Mhm.
see Tyrion, Bronn, Davos, Sam, Bran a little bit, Pod in the Kingsguard with Brienne. Like, man, I thought that was really cool. And
Mhm.
I sat, I found the whole finale really satisfying. And John having a tragic end, despite quote winning, is kind of what we predicted all along.
Mhm.
We thought he would die as a result, but uh, same difference, TBH. Um,
True.
and
I
like the whole not having a happy ending. Yeah, John did not have a happy ending,
I
but
actually feel
kind of
like he
going
did
full
though.
circle for him. And maybe
I
he wanted to go up to the north, so I guess it's not a total loss for him. He's with Ghosts of Torment after all, and he always felt more at home and at peace up there. But the sacrifices he made
Mhm.
largely are unrecognized. And like I saw people bringing up, does this mean that his lineage as Aegon Targaryen, as the rightful heir, didn't matter? It's like no, it still mattered. It certainly drove the whole half of this season. Just because they didn't make him king, I think doesn't mean it was all for naught. You know what I mean? So
I think that's a substantial or I think that has some legitimacy though, especially just because the show built that up over what 6 seasons. Like, there's going to be this big twist. Like John's parentage is this huge
mhm.
thing that one of the best episodes is the Winds of sorry the it's not the Winds of Winter, is it?
The Wind's Winter, season six
Yes,
finale. Yeah.
Winds of Winter, where they had the scene where you find out Lyanna Stark tells Ned, and then it
Yep. Tower
cuts to
Joy.
John's face,
Mhm.
and I think the fact that the payoff on that is just that it basically made him feel uncomfortable being with Danny, who I think was probably going to snap regardless, and that's not even brought up in that dragon pit scene. Just feels like
Right.
okay, like this didn't hit the way that you would have expected with a reveal and a build up to that kind of secret being revealed like that. I felt like that was a bit fumbled.
Yeah. Well, again, I think that really just is described the pacing. With more time to explore this development, we would have gotten more from it beyond its basic driving of the plot and driving of decisions, specifically
Mm-hmm.
Danny's. And yeah, that sucks. Like we would, I mean, I wanted more time with basically everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? Most people did.
Sure.
Um, and yeah, I guess that is something that suffered, but I I reject the notion that it like didn't matter at all because it certainly did. I mean, what did you what did you think about Bran becoming king? I mean, Bran the Broken, not the best title. Let's put it that way. I
Yeah.
mean, I was trying to think of if you want to do alliteration, like Bran the Flyer, Bran the. Is there a
have
B
you
word for that?
have you ever had or have you ever seen someone get such a high honor and then get dunked on as much as Bran did in that like 2 minute sequence? Tyrion was like, who has a better story than Bran the Broken? And then Sansa's like, yo, his dick doesn't even work. Like, he's not going to
So
be able to have
funny.
heirs. I was like, yo, good thing this guy doesn't have emotions. And honestly, I thought Bran was going to be like, nah, this isn't me, son. He's like, this is exactly why I'm here. I was like, what? So you're telling me this was Bran's plan all along? Like,
Well, I
I don't
think
know.
my
Yeah.
read on that was just that for him foreseeing what needs to happen, he foresaw that that's what him as a very neutral, objective figure now as the three eyed raven needed to rule as a result. That was my read on that. I mean, yes, I know like you could point to I'm not Bran anymore. I'm not really a man. Whatever, all those quotes he had about just being the three eyed raven. I get that, but I mean, I don't know. Three eyed raven was kind of a realm protecting powerful figure throughout time, and doing that from the throne. I don't know, NBD in my opinion, from
So
that
is it
perspective.
right? And I think one of the questions I'm left with is how sustainable is that, or is that the plan? Like Bran picks someone to be the three-eyed raven, and then that person's the king. Is that going to be the heir? Like there's unanswered questions which we're never going to get the answers
Right.
to. But
Well, and that was funny at the Dragon Pit. They're like, "What if we have the common folk help with the voting?" And all
yeah,
these coastal elites are all like, "Fuck that."
yeah,
So it's like more oligarchical than truly democratic, but still
right.
ultimately, was this Danny's original vision? The wheel has been broken. Yes, the throne was literally melted, but more importantly, like royal bloodlines are gone,
Hmm.
and there's been so much turnover with the houses of note that it does feel like a true regime change to me. And of course, the North is now free, um, and like free in quotes, not they were oppressed before, but
But the Iron
um,
Islands aren't, even though they were told they'd be free. So Yara's just like, yeah, you know what? You're right. Cool. Let the North be free. I'm cool being ruled by this weird kid. Like these are just the things I had issues with. Like also Grey Worm just seemed to do a 180 in that whole meeting. Like came in like, nah, I'm not hearing any of this, and then was just like, oh, okay, like I'm fine with this prisoner all of a sudden talking and running the meeting. Like just a lot of like inconsistencies with
right.
him
Well, I
there that
saw
I
some
didn't
people
like
saying
make
like, why
sense.
would these lords listen to Tyrion?
But he's the
And
smartest person in the realm.
yeah, and like he's responsible for the city beat. I was like, no, he's not. He said like it's just Danny's fault that she burned the city. Like Tyrion
Right.
doesn't get blamed for this, and Tyrion tried to be good. Like
Hmm.
I don't I really didn't understand that criticism. Like why would they listen to what Tyrion has to say? It's like yes, has Tyrion's logical compass gone up and down as the plot needed it to? Yes, no kidding. But having it came back to what he did best. And
Hmm.
Dinklage, of course, had a great episode as a result.
Great episode for
Didn't
Dinklage.
well, that tracked for me. I really didn't understand why that didn't work for people. Um,
I thought Amelia Clark was great in this episode too.
yes,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and Kit Harington as well. But I thought especially Amelia Clark this season had a lot to do and nailed it. Kit Harington pretty much just said for most of the season, "You are my queen," like that in his brooding sense.
Right.
But
What did you think, Nessa, for John? I saw this going around. John ultimately was convinced to kill Danny
mhm.
and never gave up his claim. It was taken from him. Do you feel like that hurt John's agency overall? I didn't really mind it. Like it made all of it made sense within the story for me.
Mhm.
Granted, John was one of the main protagonists, so I guess it would have been nice to give him more of like a just more time to pontificate. I guess, of course, more time. We would have gotten into John's head more. Of course, that would have been great. But I didn't really mind how it went down for him. I mean,
Well,
he got his old locks back
yeah,
while he was in jail, you know. And I
I
really liked the Danny scene when he killed her. So I didn't have an issue with that either.
I do feel if you listen to binge mode, one of the themes they talk about a lot is the person that doesn't want to rule oftentimes is the best ruler. And
Like Bran.
yeah, the reluctant ruler, sure. Although Brand didn't seem all that reluctant. He was like, "Yeah, son, give me that crown. I'm with it." Um, John, though, I think, and this is one of the themes that came out of the story overall for me, is a lot of times people are who they tell you that they are, and I think John told people almost in every single season, "I'm just a soldier. Like I take orders. Like sure, I'll like lead men if I have to, but he's not really born to be the person who's on the throne making those sort of decisions. Sansa is built for that. Bran, I guess now somehow is built for that. Tyrion's definitely built for that. But kind of like Grey Worm, I think John's just a soldier, man, and I think that's how at least I reckon with him not having as much agency as maybe people would want him to have in these stories. That's just kind of who he is. And I think nature, what it like human nature in this is a major theme of the story. And someone like Arya, who in the first season tells you, "Oh, I'm not that type of girl. I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
be that way."
Not a lady.
And now she's goddamn Henry Hudson. She's going out and exploring the new world, man. Ferdinand Magellan and that shit. So it's cool to see like that payoff of like people being who they've always been and seeing that develop through time. I guess with the exception of Bran, who became something totally not him, but that's a whole nother
Huh.
storyline. So I wanted to ask you though, because I think season 8 has gotten a lot of critique, and people were saying that this was an awful way to end the show. Did you feel like season 8 was a good throne season, a bad throne season, a great throne season? Like, where would you put it up there with the other? Like, I think season 4 or 5 is like regarded as probably
Five.
the best one. 5,
Oh, best. Yeah, best would be 3 or 4, depending
3 or
on,
4, yeah.
and then 6, depending on who you ask. Um, I still thought it was a good season,
Mhm.
but again, there's a lot of qualifiers because it's truncated.
Yep.
And but there are so many great moments. Obviously, all the technical stuff we haven't really talked about.
Yeah.
Both this episode with like the shot of Drogon's wings and Drogon with the snow. And yes, that's all CGI. Yeah, no kidding. But it's still required shooting and
Mhm.
vision to make. Um, that shit was great, and everything with the
Yeah.
bells was technically a masterpiece, whether you cared about Danny's turn or not. And of course,
Yep.
the long night, same thing. Even if you had trouble following along visually. And then let's not forget this season we had a Night of the Seven Kingdoms, the where Brienne gets knighted, the episode before the Battle of Winterfell,
Yep.
which is like a top tier Thrones episode, the peak of characters meeting in a place
Mhm.
and shooting the shit. And it's like some the best Thrones stuff we've ever gotten is exactly what that episode was.
Yep.
And yeah, again like this and season 7 are just kind of a piece because of the seemingly unforced error that was choosing to shoot less than before. But I still don't. I still was satisfied almost every single week by almost everything, and again, never had a problem with the story. So yes, I still think it's a good Throne season. But seasons 3 and 4, which are the adaptations of Storm of Swords, I think the plot and the story is such a grand scale at that time, and the seasons themselves are just so awesome. I remember in that we get the death of Rob, the death of
Mhm.
Joffrey, the death of Oberyn.
Yep.
There's so much awesome stuff that happens from a story perspective, and it's executed so well in the show that
Yeah.
I mean, the show peaked at that time. Of course, it did. But in terms of having to end, this season had to end the ship, land the plane,
Yeah.
and
It landed.
it landed it. So it's still a good season.
Yeah. I agree. It's still Game of Thrones, I think, bucked what it meant to be a television show in so many ways, and that's a tribute to George R. R. Martin's story. I've seen a lot of people saying he's a big winner of Thrones season 8, all the criticism it's
Nope.
received. I actually would
Sorry.
say the opposite. Um, get that story done. I think one of the things I feel most almost like cheated by is I loved seeing the way that this story was adapted on the screen and the fact that it wasn't able to be exactly what it was intended to be because he hasn't written these stories. It's just very frustrating. And I want to see him get these stories done because I'm probably going to have to read the books and catch up at this point because I want to know how things are supposed to end.
Well, you
Um,
have plenty of time.
yeah, and maybe all the time in the world because we don't actually know if we'll get these done. Um,
Yeah, the crux of George is a big winner because this season was polarizing doesn't really track with me because well oh wait the point is people are really excited for him to keep writing the books so we can read them like
we
as if
already
that
were.
was somehow different 6 weeks
Right.
ago.
Mhm.
No, like, George is taking L after L because he doesn't finish the story that he started writing in 1991.
Yep.
It's only L's here, and frankly they started shooting the spin-off a few weeks ago, FYI, and that probably comes out the end of next year, or maybe early 2021.
Yeah.
Wait till the next book isn't out when we see a trailer for the spinoff. Like, I'm sorry, but this everything is on George in terms of his story being taken from him. And
Mhm.
by the way, he told them what happened, so we expect Danny to break bad in the
Yes.
books. It's been
Exactly.
foreshadowed in the books as well, so it's not like Benioff and Weiss went off tilt and made
Yep.
shit up. Like
Um,
they got the broad strokes anyway.
we're gonna get a Maisie Williams Arya
Nah,
exploring. No, you don't think so? I think we'll
no
get a
way.
spinoff.
No, frankly, I think she wouldn't be interested in it as an actor. But also, I think they've basically said that all of these spin-offs that are in various stages of development,
Our
including the
prequels.
Long White one, are prequels. I believe the Long White one is codename Blood Moon,
Ooh, I
and
like that.
I we're going back, hundreds and up to thousands of years in the past, and like I mean, this Long Night one, yes, it's a prequel, but this is like pre-Targaryens, pre-Andal invasion. This is like First Men shit, Children of the Forest, Leon the Clever, Bran the Builder, Last Hero. This is like way back there. And frankly, would
And
probably feel very different. And that's really cool. And obviously, this world is never going away. This gap we get between now and that spinoff is frankly going to be the largest gap we ever get again for
Mhm.
at least
Thrones content.
15 years, probably. So um,
Yeah, you
embrace
know,
it.
it's interesting, and I think what makes me excited for that Long Night spinoff is the fantasy elements, and that's actually probably one of my biggest disappointments of the season. It's just how basically after episode 3, they decided we're not really going to deal with the fantasy elements anymore. We never got Arya with another faceless man type situation where she's using someone else's face. We didn't really learn much more about Bran and his magical
Mhm.
abilities and what he can do. And I do feel like that's something that the books will be able to expand on in a way that the show wasn't able to. And I think just chose not to try to anymore, which I think is an understandable decision, but still a disappointing one for me. Um, just want to get that in there. Last question, or maybe two more. Is this the last monoculture TV show?
It has to be. It has to be.
Yeah.
Just because, as we've said ad nauseum before, I'll say it again. So much stuff is competing for your time these days, and a lot of the shows that do come out are released all at once, a la Stranger Things and stuff on Amazon and most Hulu shows, and just doesn't lend itself to a 6-week bonanza that we just went through the way Thrones did.
Hmm.
And I mean, Barry, we'll talk about Barry in a second. Barry got like 2 million uh, original viewers last night, which was more than double season one's finale. Great gains. But like Barry, a show that everyone you talk to loves it, every critic shouts to the moon about it, is but a piece of dust in the cultural landscape because there's just so much shit going on. And that would still be the case if it wasn't competing with Thrones or going on right after Thrones, right? And like, I mean, what's supposed to fill this void and attempt to be this or even be Breaking Bad, something that was really big but not quite this big,
Hmm.
like the Lord of the Rings show. Um, I feel like it has to be very, very good to get enough people interested. Just because I think, largely speaking, the Hobbit movies brought people down out of the Middle Earth High. Even if I still like most of the Hobbit movies, but I mean the Marvel Disney Plus shows, The Mandalorian. I just don't think these shows are going to get the ratings unless Disney Plus
Yeah.
gets 50 million subs in like 3 months. I just don't. I just don't think we have the infrastructure nor the stuff in the immediate future that has even a chance to attempt to grab this
What
much of the pie. It's just not it's not realistic.
what about what about the Game of Thrones spin-offs? Do you think they have a chance to potentially grab the culture like this again?
I think the spin-offs are going to do very well. Um, and because HBO will push them and they have the Thrones affiliation and
Hmm.
they'll be heavily, heavily marketed, but it won't be as big as this show. I don't think
Yeah.
that's likely at all. And I would have said that even if this season was a 10 out of 10, everyone loved it.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, again, I just don't. It's tough. Like spin spin-offs, prequels, continuing of IP, it very rarely continues the highs that it originally captured.
Yeah.
And you can look at anything in movies and TV; it's usually the case. So, um, I guess in a sense that's sad, just because it was so fun and so awesome to watch this show live. And
Hmm.
as I said before, started watching this show live during season 2, so I've been really following the week to week of it for a very long time. And there really wasn't anything like it, especially once Breaking Bad ended. So it is gonna kind of suck, and this is why I always push for make put out your shows week to week because the conversation will be larger. Even if it
Yep.
won't be this large, it'll still be much larger. It's just better.
All right. Serious last question now for Thrones. Where's this rank in your all-time TV shows? Your personal list.
Top 3.
I think it's probably top
Haven't haven't
five for me.
haven't thought about it. Breaking Bad, Leftovers, this
Yeah, I
some
put
order.
Breaking Bad, Leftovers, The Wire, definitely above it. Trying to think of if there's a show I'd put fourth. Um, but yeah, it's up there. And just it's a spectacle in every sense. There's not going to be another show I think that reaches this level of production, this level of just being talked about,
Mm-hmm.
popularity. So,
Wait, you're saying Westworld season 3 doesn't have that potential?
actually, that trailer when I saw,
Aaron Paul.
yeah, Aaron Paul, I was like, huh, I'm intrigued. I'm willing to give it a couple episodes to see, and I'm sure we'll talk about it.
Maybe
We'll at
it'll
least
make
hate watch
sense
it.
after 20 hours.